Welcome to the Unlocking Senior Resources podcast by Leave the Key. I'm Larry Wagner, and I've spent 30 years working with seniors where I was a certified senior advisor and the last 15 years in the home buying industry as a certified senior transition specialist, where I specialize in dealing with seniors going through a transition in their lives. This podcast is for seniors, those with seniors they love, and people who work in the senior community. In each episode, we bring on a guest who works to improve the lives of seniors. This podcast is your key to unlocking senior resources. Welcome. Today we're here with Peter Janowsky of Ryan & Janowsky, I want to get this right, Financial Strategies Group out of Jericho. Welcome, Peter.
Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. So, Peter, you are a financial advisor?
Yes, I am a financial advisor. Basically own my own practice. I'm also an accredited investment fiduciary. And when I say I own my own practice is a little history. I started my career in the late 1900s under Morgan Stanley. Right now, I'm in something called the independent channel. To explain that a little bit, the big difference is that when I'm working for Morgan Stanley, the clients were theirs. Now the clients are mine. So I have the same levels of compliance and insurance as a Morgan or a Merrill or any large firm. The big difference is that I don't have to hit any quotas. I'm not selling any proprietary products. I have no pressure on me. I don't have levels of management above me that is getting paid, and I don't have any minimums. So if I have a client that says to me, hey, listen, my nephew or whatever just came into $10,000. He's 22. Would you help him out? Of course I would. That's the whole point of being, of this business is growing by helping people.
And the big boys don't want that. Like the Morgan Stanleys and so on.
Yes.
I assume different people, like the bank channel, they tend to take those smaller clients.
Probably, but I've noticed in the last several years when I run into other people in my business who are still with what they call the wirehouses, the bigger firms, and they say they have a minimum. Well, it's not them. I'm pretty sure it's the firm that's imposing the minimum on them.
Correct. Just for the record, I was a financial advisor. We had this discussion also within the independent channel. I didn't want to be one of the big boys with the big boys because I didn't like the level of control. And as you said, I remember when I had my first broker, my first advisor, he worked for Dean Witter. I actually started with Dean Witter, and within months, Morgan Stanley took him over. But we talk about control. I could hire someone if I want to. I could pick and choose my own technology. If I want to take off 3 days, I'm off 3 days. I could work off my phone. So yeah, absolutely. You can work off your phone. That was a big deal too.
Oh, these days, yeah.
But he was selling me Dean Witter products. And I found out Dean Witter mutual funds were paying twice the commission of regular mutual funds. And I had some really crappy funds. So I credit you for being an independent. It's more difficult. You have your own overhead to maintain. You're not in an office where they give you, in one of their offices, you have your own office. And it's a little more risky being independent because you have overhead.
Right. Well, in a way I do, in a way I don't. I'm part of a structured situation where there is a compliance manager who runs an office, and I have an independent contract with him, so I don't have to worry about overhead. And it's just a deal worked out. It's really easy. And the name of my company is Osaic, and there's probably 12,000 advisors under the Osaic umbrella.
We're part of Walnut Street Securities, but there was no Walnut Street office. So I had my own Wagner office with my father, who was my partner for 30 years. And we had to hire an outside compliance person who was approved by...
I have a little easier. Mine was like a turnkey operation.
Oh, there you go.
Which is what I'm very happy. It's very, very convenient. It's a very nice atmosphere there.
But I recommend I'm a firm believer in independent channel, not for the broker's sake, but for the client's sake, because you're able to speak the way you want to speak, say the things you want to say, and present the things you want to present. And I think that's definitely beneficial to any client. So kudos for that one. And anyone's listening, watching, pay attention. Independent channel is the way to go. The big boys have all the commercial slots. The little guys don't. The independents don't. But anyway, let's talk about. So how long are you in the business? You said in the 90s.
I started in the late 1900s. I've been in the business 28 years. Yeah, I had a partner who was actually my best friend. He passed away a few years ago, and he was a very interesting guy. He was very involved in the community, and he's the reason why we started being involved in the senior community, because he actually had a master's in gerontology. He was the president of the Great Neck Senior Center, and we we did a lot of road shows geared for seniors and their families. In fact, a very interesting one that we did was called Project Safe. We started this in 2012 before anybody was coming up with presentations to do senior scams. And Project Safe stood for, it's actually, I'm still doing it, Seniors Against Financial Exploitation. That's one of the things that we did. And yeah, so I mean, I have stories, tons of stories about it, and it's really sad. I mean, you're talking about billions being scammed from seniors across the country. And in the county that I live in, Nassau County, the biggest percentage is usually under construction scams. But
really?
Oh yeah, they come in and they you need a new chimney, whatever. Right. And the biggest part of what I see on my end is when a senior becomes vulnerable. Yeah. And vulnerable is a general term. They can be vulnerable in many ways, but I could tell you that, I've literally seen the most common ones with the email scams and the phone scams. And, those are the easy ones. But usually when a senior is scammed, they don't want to talk about it. It's usually from someone they know. Yeah. Or it could be an aide. It could be a family member. Not to sound twisted towards one person, one gender or the other, right. But widows seem to be very vulnerable. They do.
The statistics bear that out.
Yeah, and you look, it could happen to men too. When somebody loses a spouse or a partner, their whole attitude, their whole mental landscape changes, and I could tell you about the loneliness and everything. So a true story. I know a lady who unfortunately lost her husband during COVID, and a much younger gentleman took advantage of her to a point where it got a little concerning. Yeah. And the daughter contacted me, and she was a client. So actually I had to stop everything immediately. I had to report it to compliance and for her own protection. And knock wood, everything's good now. There was a fallout with the family, but knock wood, everything's good and wonderful. She's healthy, which is most important. But during that time, we were so concerned that my firm actually had to call the I think it was the Department of Aging in the state of New York, and had to go knock on her door. Wow. So, this is something that was reported. But you can't imagine how many times, people are scammed out of whatever. I mean, I've heard stories where people have lost houses because, A's befriended them and there was no way out of it. Once someone signs a deed over, it's almost impossible to bring that back. So, I mean, we could talk. I could give a whole hour presentation about this, but
two particular come into my mind in my experience, or just a few sentences each. One was the aide who took care of the husband. He passed. The wife kept the aide on because she was now older and could use help, and the aide had been with him for years. They had no children, but they had family, and the nephew and the nephew's kids were the sole beneficiary. Well, they took the nephew out of the will, not out of the will, but they changed all their beneficiaries and all their accounts to this aide, about $5 million. And I called my compliance department, and this is years before. They said, you're not allowed to get involved in that. I said, this is senior abuse. You don't see this? Someone should be checking into this. I said, no, we're not allowed. About 2 years later, they changed the policy. That would have been allowed, but too little, too late. Yeah. I was so upset. Another one, same thing. One of the kids, my grandkid's calling. He's in jail. He needs money.
Common one.
He calls me and says, I just spoke to my grandson and he's in jail. He needs money. I said, okay, let's get you some money. He didn't tell me he spoke to someone who said he spoke to his grandson. Right? He thought he led me to believe he actually spoke to his grandson. Yeah. So it's so easy. And it turned out he was scammed 2 times before. My gosh. Just the third scam would have been $100,000 out of his pocket. Yeah. That's money. Yeah. That's money. Yeah, that's a life-changing amount of money for many people.
It is. Yeah. Listen, it doesn't matter how much you lose when you lose everything or you lose a sum. It's hurtful. It hurts. It hurts the ego. It hurts everything. Yeah. Yeah. But so with the scams and we're talking about the grandson scam and the emails. I mean, they're prevalent, and unfortunately, they work. Because if they weren't working, they wouldn't keep doing it. Right. But you hear about it all the time. I had someone I know really too had the email scam. Right. So it was just around the same time the spyware on the computer was up for contract. I think it was Norton. It was $299. The person gets the email and you Googles it to make sure it's real and everything. And as they're paying, I think it was like $399 for the year. Right. And as they're paying it, they see the numbers going 3999999.
Oh gosh.
And she calls them in a panic.
Yeah.
And somehow they talked her into, hey, listen, we need to go to your bank to bring the money back and forth. And they wiped her out of $40,000. There was nothing they could do about it. And, it doesn't seem, for some people, it's a lot of money. For some others, maybe insignificant.
Right.
But for this person, it was very important. And, it was devastating, emotionally devastating.
That's it. It's emotional devastation.
Yeah.
It makes you start to feel your age.
It's a good point. This person was not even in a point where she needed to feel her age.
Right.
But I will say that on that note, a little bit of a segue off the left field a little bit. This is really for people who are among seniors.
Right.
And I always say that you around holidays, when you see, if there's somebody you don't see often, try to be mindful and aware of that person's capacities. If there's a hint of a slowdown, if you're visiting someone on the weekend, you have to be aware, because I think in my own experience, my own personal experience, I find that people don't usually age slowly over time. Usually something happens and hopefully it's noticeable. So I'll tell you a quick story. And I'm very big, I feel like I'm all over the place, but it's fine. I'm very big in trying to prepare for the unexpected. So there was a young man in his early 20s who had older parents, and he had to go to work because his father had cancer, like 20 years old. And he was helping to support the family, went to school at night. The mother didn't drive. She was working too. And there was a grandmother 90 minutes away in Brooklyn that he went to 2 or 3 times a week to make sure she ate and bathed. And after a few years, the father passed away. The grandmother had to go into a home. And during this whole time, there was no preparation being done. So when the grandmother went into the home, they lost everything because of Medicaid.
Yes.
Which is fine, which is normal, right? So So they lost everything. And again, like I was saying, it doesn't make a difference if it's 10,000 or 10 million. You lose everything is everything.
Everything's everything. It's 100% to 100%. Yeah.
So that person was me.
Yeah.
That's a true story.
Oh,
we
really?
lost everything. And my grandmother was my father's mother, but she was very close to my mom. And the amount of money we lost, it wasn't going to buy us a yacht, but it would have made my mom's life slightly easier.
Right.
So we knew nothing. I didn't know anything about Medicaid planning. I was a caregiver before I knew what the word meant.
Right.
I had no idea. Yep. And now I wouldn't say I live by a motto or something, but I use this line a lot. Rosalind Carter once said there's 4 types of people in this world. Those who were caregivers, those who will be caregivers, those who are caregivers, and those who need care.
Yeah.
And I was a caregiver young, but I didn't consider myself that. I was just a devoted son doing what he was supposed to be doing. Yeah. So you fast forward to, because I had to go, I went to work, went to school at night, got married, had started my own family, and then I changed careers in the late 90s.
Right.
And fast forward, and that's why I think I might have a little bit more of a sensitivity to want to make sure people prepare properly.
That's wonderful.
Because at the end of the day, I think when someone's doing their estate planning and the emotions come into it, I don't think they're concerned about how much, if they're going to get 7 or 8% return, but they want to make sure that chandelier goes to granddaughter Susie.
Right.
That's Absolutely. Really what's important.
The problem with that is granddaughter Susie doesn't want the chandelier, but that's a whole other topic of discussion.
That's a whole it's a whole nother.
That's come in numerous podcasts before, and in my own family as well.
Yeah.
Actually, nobody wants that chandelier. Not even Susie. You can't even sell that chandelier. Trust me, I know. So with that in mind, I like the fact that in this podcast. Again, I come from the same background you do. I had a career before that. I went into that career at the age of 32. And I left that career 7 years ago when I was 60 and was 59. And everyone I find who deals in the senior community, whether it's their entire business or a large part of their business, comes to it from personal experience, and they make compassion while they're working in that industry. Dealing with seniors is harder. It's definitely harder. And you have to want to do it. You have to feel the desire to work with seniors, to help seniors and so on. And I think in all the podcasts we've done, I'd say it's 100%. I have seen that. So when I'm hearing the same thing from you, you had a personal story that makes you relate to exactly what you do now, which can't make you any more empathetic to your clients than you could possibly be.
No, and I'm very lucky. I get to work with a lot of very warm, loving families. I see some really good things, and you see it generationally right down to the grandchildren. Yeah, so I see a lot of good stories. I mean, I see a couple of bad ones too because of scams and everything, but a lot of good ones. And it's very typical for me to be working with someone who's anywhere from 60 to 75 years old.
Right.
And a typical client coming to me would be someone who say, listen, I want to retire. I have an old 401k to hold a firm out there anymore. I need to roll this one over. At the same time, I'm just finishing up paying some student loans. I think I want you to talk to my kids. And my parents are getting on in age. My father's a little stubborn. He doesn't want to move. He wants to age in place. And my mom might be starting to lose it a little bit. So help. Yeah. What am I supposed to do? So there are so obviously I'm not an attorney. Right. However, I do work closely with a couple of attorneys. I've learned a lot over the years. And I think that there's one little misconception is that people think certain documents, you could wait till you're a certain age. Right. Well, not really. For a healthcare proxy, for example, everybody should have a healthcare proxy no matter what age they are.
Absolutely.
When it comes to subject of trust, I think there's a ton of misconception about trust as well. I mean, a lot of people don't understand what's going on with Medicaid planning and the look back period. So there's a lot going on. And there's like a little tip too. What people don't understand how a trust could actually save a lot of angst down the road is that just a regular trust, a regular revocable trust could be used as a contingent beneficiary for retirement plans. So, for instance, if a couple has a child or a grandchild that they're concerned about falling in with the wrong crowd or getting involved with the wrong person, the trust will protect those assets if they're inherited. Yep.
Yeah. You're preaching to the choir on that one, but you mentioned a retirement plan. I have a question for you, and I dealt with this universe, and I have a very large IRA and 401k myself, and I've converted some of it to Roth, and people saying at my age now at 67, I'm too old to convert. It doesn't pay. Do you have an opinion on that?
I have an opinion. However, I think it's
not generic.
It's not generic. And what's the expression? Paint a stroke with a broad brush, stroke with a brush, whatever. It's too many variables. Everybody's so different. You're really better off talking to your tax planner about that. Right.
Because everyone says when you reach my age, which I hate to think that my age is being reached, but when you are my age, I'll rephrase that the payback is too long. And I got to tell you, being that I come from this universe, I don't understand. It doesn't make any sense to me. I was curious if you had an opinion, but you're not wrong. Actually, you are right to sit there and say, don't paint everyone with a broad brush. And I agree.
There's too many variables.
Yeah.
In fact, I think that the variables that have come into the world now when it comes into investing are more vast than ever.
Yes.
And I used to say we need to prepare for the unexpected, and everybody's risk tolerance is different. And of course, as we age, our risk tolerance usually grows lower, unless you're in a position where you have great assets and you're investing for a third or fourth generation. However, I have a new way of looking at it where it's the risk for variables. How much risk can we deal with? I mean, if you look at the variables that happened over the last 10, 12 years, everything from financial crisis to COVID. To, news changing every minute, it's a lot. So if we could design plans and portfolios to tolerate risks or even better, make them not even matter.
Right.
Then we're doing a good job.
I agree 100%. Yeah. That's very well said. We used to talk about the stock market risk of getting negative percent or positive percent, but there's so much more risk than just that. And it goes beyond the stock market, let's put it that way. And there's social risk. For instance, when COVID hit, all these seniors started becoming lonely because their friends were passing away, moving, moving with family, moving into facilities. And people were still at home. Some of their friends were gone. And that's a huge risk. What's your life going to look like? Clients, I dealt with retired educators from New York City. That was my client base. I had 880 clients, probably 850 or 60 were from that group. Most of them supervisors, some teachers, most supervisors. And they come to me when they want to retire and I say, what's your retirement plan? And they said, no, I'm asking you what's my retirement plan. I said, no. On September 5th or whatever the Tuesday or Wednesday is after Labor Day, what are you going to do if you retired that September? What are you going to do? I don't know. You need a retirement plan. And that to me is a retirement plan. The money is important, but you need to know how you're going to live. And that's also one of the people, they talk about people like me. I'm a workaholic. I don't ever want to retire, and I can see myself retiring and dying right away because this is like my oxygen. So you have to know the person quite frankly, the person has to know themselves, truly know themselves to know how to plan for their future. What are their likes, their dislikes? and the money's important. It's all about the money. It's both.
And you know what? It's okay to not know what you want to do.
Right. But you have to be able to figure it out. I think you do.
To a point, it's also added pressure. But if you're the type of person that never really knew what they want to do when they retire, or not really sure what truly makes them happy, then you can't just say, well, you need to know now because you're going to retire. You put that pressure on someone.
Okay, it's interesting that we're not agreeing on this, because I love this. I speaking to an 81-year-old woman who called me about buying her house. She's in a split level house, can't climb the stairs anymore, and there's stairs everywhere in a split level house. She's still working. She's a therapist. And I said, at 81, I recommend you move into community. You have an immediate social group and everything else. She goes, I don't like people, which I thought was kind of interesting for a therapist. But I don't like people. I'm a loner and so on. And I said, what are you going to do if you retire? She goes, I could never retire. She goes, I would have nothing to do. She goes, I need to work. So she's one who, as a therapist, I like to think she knows herself. But I never played in my life. I don't know how to play. I don't want to know how to play. I like working. That's my hobby. People go on vacation to get away from work.
I'm a big believer in balance, right? But when you're saying something very interesting, people have to know themselves. I think there are people who go through their entire lives without knowing themselves.
I believe that. I think a large percentage of the population.
So when a person like me is in a situation trying to help someone prepare through transitions in life, and that person doesn't know what they really want or what truly brings them joy, money's probably the last topic, right? We want to prepare and say, listen, it doesn't make a difference what you do. If you find yourself, if you don't find yourself, you want to work, you want to play, whatever, let's make sure, God forbid you break an ankle, it's not going to disrupt your life or someone else's life.
Correct.
And how do we do that?
Yep. Yep. It's so funny because financial planning is so broad.
It's emotional.
It's so broad.
It's more emotional than people realize.
Absolutely. You made that clear at the very beginning.
So listen, I think that, when you want to get into the investment part of it, and for anyone who's listening, what do I mean by emotional? Well, I think that what I was saying before, a large amount of the people I'm working now, those in transition, going from what we call the accumulation stage to the distribution stage. And I've always said this, that if you're in a position where you've accumulated enough assets to maintain your lifestyle, which means the assets are going to throw off enough income to maintain your lifestyle, then you shouldn't be taking unnecessary risk.
Right. So
when you see if wild swings in the market are keeping you up at night, then maybe you need to change something.
Yep.
And if that means, there's a rule of thumb that you should stay allocated for growth over the long term stuff. But if it doesn't feel right, why do it?
Right.
I've always felt that about that. You have to respect people's feelings more than anything.
So what do you do? In my case, I say I'm on you felt your risk profile. My wife is a 1, I'm a 10. Where do you go? And
separate rooms.
That works, but we're in one room with you. What do you recommend? People say go to a 5. You got to do something midway. But I know a 5's not going to get us necessarily where we want to get us. And you need to take on more risk. I know more risk typically brings more reward, but with more volatility. Well, not always, but typically.
Here's the thing, all right? And you probably know this well, that anyone could take a chunk of history and twist it for whatever story they want to make into it, right?
Past performance is no indication of future.
Right. So if you want to say, hey, listen, on average, a stock market, I don't know, the S&P returns, let's say 8% a year with dividends over a 30 or 40 year period.
Right.
Most people aren't looking at a 30 or 40 year period. So if a 65-year-old comes to me and the 65-year-old and the wife is 64, I'm being completely arbitrary. Their plans are to retire in 2 years and move to Florida, yada, yada. So it's a really short window if you think about it. Because if you start looking at all these statistics about markets and returns, they're quite long. So let's go to a real chunk of history that I'm carving out. Granted, I'm carving out, but the truth is this actually happened. From 1999 to 2009, you basically had a lost decade. So if you put $100 into the S&P, after 10 years, you had about $100 left.
Minus inflation, you had like $70 left.
Right, correct. But if you were diversified, you had some bonds or whatever you want to talk about, you actually could have averaged 4 to 6% a year. Am I saying a lost decade is going to happen again? No. But I'm not saying it can happen. Correct. So think about what happened. You're not willing
to predict it.
No. I don't change the batteries in my crystal ball.
Yes, right.
So think about what happened just for a few things in that 10-year span. The internet bubble burst, 9/11, Asia was falling apart. There was an issue with the Russian currency. 2002 was a disaster. We started coming up. And then in the 2008, we had the terrible banking real estate crisis, which is a whole nother story. But if you're someone who needs to plan and, hey, listen, I need some growth, but I can't afford to have another lost decade, then you simply shouldn't be doing it. Like I said before, there was an old joke. I first heard this joke in 2002 when the S&P was down 22%. My 401k is now a 201k.
Right. Yes.
It's funny when you're 30. It's not funny when you're 60.
No.
Right. So I think there's a lot of misconceptions, and what's killing. I wouldn't say what's killing it. What's making it difficult. I'm just going to take a prop out of my pocket. What's really hard these days is this.
Right?
Yes. It's constant information. Yeah. It's a stream.
It's your cell phone for those who are listening, not watching.
Yeah. And, thank you. Yes. I forgot about that part. So, we have instant access at our fingertips. It doesn't mean the information's always correct, and it doesn't mean this for us. You look at, there's a generation out there right now that doesn't hire anyone for anything. Right. If they have to fix a faucet, they'll look at a do-it-yourself video and get it done. It doesn't work like that for everything.
No.
You're not going to if you need a kidney transplant, you're not going to look it on YouTube how to do it.
There's also a generation that doesn't talk to anybody. They text everybody, and there's non-verbal communication. That's a whole nother story. But that cell phone has changed the way everything happens.
Yeah. But it's technology, and we have to embrace change. Right. That's capitalism, right? Embracing change and adapting.
Right.
But we also have to. I can't think of an expression right now, but owner beware.
Right.
We have to be our own best advocate.
Right.
So I think my biggest, I wouldn't say competition or frustration, but I would say, or even obstacle.
Right.
But my biggest observance of what we have to combat a little bit these days is false senses. False information, it's about everything. I don't do Medicaid or Medicare, but there's a lot of misconceptions about that.
Right.
There's a lot of misconceptions about the market, what's going on in investments. It's quite interesting what technology could bring.
Absolutely,
and enhance
good and bad.
Yeah, enhance the misconceptions.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So question for you: you have a series of things you want to cover, and I have a series of questions. So what? Because this is a much more. I hate to have technical podcasts.
Ask me a question.
But ask you. But for instance, I asked you about. Well, let's see a couple. But being that this is my universe, grandchildren. A lot of clients would come to me and say they want to gift money to their grandchildren, their young minor grandchildren. Your thoughts on gifting money to minor grandchildren? So
again, it's a little emotional, and I run the gamut. I get that from people who are comfortable, and I get it from people who are very wealthy. And of course, it's usually for college planning.
Right.
529s are a very popular vehicle.
A college saving program.
It's tax-free on the way out. It gives you a little state tax deduction.
Yep.
You're limited to investments in mutual funds, which may or may not outperform certain investments outside the 529. Now there's a new rule for leftover 529s. The beneficiary could actually convert a portion of it to a Roth IRA.
Oh, really?
Which is fascinating.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I think it's kind of, I'm just looking into it. I think there's limits, annual limits, or maybe a lifetime limit of 30,000 or something like that.
That's a hell of a start for a 22-year-old.
Oh, no, it's a great thing. I mean, don't quote me on the particulars, but you can do that.
Yeah.
What are the drawbacks? People don't think there are drawbacks in the 529. Well, there are, because you can change the beneficiary whenever you want.
Yeah.
You're limited to like I said, you're limited to the mutual fund investments that are in there. And believe it or not, the drawback is that you're not the only one knowing about it.
That's exactly. I was going to get to that.
Right. So. If you take the grandparent part, they could be the owner and not tell anyone, but eventually, really not tell anyone. It's, the grandchild doesn't have to know about it either, to be honest with you. But if they make the parent the owner, the parent knows about it. So Years ago, before the 529, they had custodial accounts to 18 or 21.
Right.
The problem is at that age, the child gets the money. So, I heard a story once, and I think it was partially true. Whatever the car was, a kid came in, showed his driver's license on his birthday, took the money and bought a car.
Right.
It could happen.
A car's not so bad. It could be drugs too. Right.
Stay positive. So here's what I sometimes suggest to people. Because the 529 has some tax advantage, and it's okay to show it. So, hey, grandchild Johnny, whatever, I'm putting $1,000 into your 529. And it's like a birthday present, or $2,000 on a holiday or something. What we have suggested over the years is just simply open another account. So if somebody, let's say Jack has a brokerage account with me, I would say we're going to open up Jack account number 2, and you and I are going to be the only person that knows about it. And whenever you feel compelled, you want to add to that account, that's going to be the college savings account that only you know about. Right. And the only reason why you're segregating it is because mentally you could feel that it's segregated, and you're like, okay, you know what? This year I'm going to give him 5, I'm going to give him 10,000, whatever the number is. And it's not really out of the account. Basically, once it's out of the account, you feel that you actually made that separation, and no one knows about it. So something changes in your life or someone else's life, it's still there. You can take it back. So I usually split it 50-50. Do the 529 to make it tax efficient, make it ceremonial. But the real money that you're concerned about, just keep it in the piggy bank.
Hi, I'm Larry.
And I'm Ben. We're the father and son team of Leave the Key Home Buyers, and we want to buy your house.
We specialize in working with seniors who are transitioning out of their homes, and we understand what you are going through.
So if you're considering selling your home and would like an alternative to the traditional overwhelming process, reach out and see how we can help.
Do you have an outdated home?
No need to update anything.
Have a home that needs repairs?
Don't bother with repairs.
Don't want to take everything with you?
Leave whatever you want behind.
Dreading the headaches that come with agents?
Sell your home without paying a commission.
Dreading prying neighbors attending open houses and passing judgment on your home?
No need for public showings.
When you sell to us, you'll have all the certainty of closing on your timeline, not someone else's, and there's absolutely no pressure.
Visit leavethekey.com or call us today for a no-obligation offer at 631-388-7771 if you want to sell your home today.
With 529s, my concern is you can have a grandparent. My client's usually the grandparent. When you have 80-year-old clients, they're the grandparent, not the parent of a college-age kid. And I would say if you open I would tell them, first question they wanted a 529, will your son or daughter end up applying for financial aid for your grandchildren? If the answer is yes, then never put more than 1 year's worth of 529 money away and use it for the 4th year. Because once you expose it in year 1, now the family knows that 529 exists and they have to disclose it, is my understanding.
You may know a little bit more about that than I do. I don't get into the college planning aspect on that. And again, every state is different.
Yes, I dealt with
so
New York.
It's state specific. And I also know that many times, as much as they look at assets, many times income will negate a lot of college funding as well.
But it's very so don't just willy-nilly open a 529 if you think you may be eligible, the family's eligible for financial aid. Doing an account like you said, that's set aside with a beneficiary, that's so much better because it's not the child's money until grandma, grandpa, mom, dad pass and or they decide to distribute it to them. So I'm not a firm believer in giving kids money in custodial accounts. You don't know what the kid's going to be like when they turn 18 or 21. You said a car. We'll use that one. And so that, it could be worse. And that's what concerns me. And I know someone who actually killed the grandchild because their money became available. They bought drugs and they died of an overdose.
My gosh.
So could you imagine being the grandparent that killed your grandchild? And that's what happened to one of my clients. So I never do custodial accounts. So I'm very careful when you give money to grandchildren. So you can see it's a very complicated topic. It really is. You think you're doing the right thing, but be careful and ask questions of your grandkids' parents, your kids. That's important. I mentioned, asked you about Roth conversions. Social Security. The clients talk to you about when to claim Social Security.
Mm-hmm. It's also very individual, very specific to everybody's case.
I've always heard the break even was 81, and now I'm hearing maybe 82. For those who don't know, if basically, if you collect at 62, you're getting an 8% discount from normal retirement age, which right now for most people is 67.
Right.
So if you collect at 66, you're going to get 8% less. At 65, you're going to get 16% less, and so on down to 62. And if you wait from 67 to 68, 69, 7, you're going to get 8% more per year.
Again, it's right, but it's a variable we don't know.
The variable we don't know.
Because let's say if you're waiting 3 years, right, while you're alive and start collecting Social Security, right, you have to wait to that whatever you said 81. It's usually a 12-year period where you have to you make up for that crossover.
And the crossover, but what they don't talk about is if you're an investor, if you invest the money, and that never comes up in conversation. Just talk about the raw money you're not receiving. Because if you wait till 70 versus 62, you haven't collected that reduced benefit for those 8 years. Therefore, you have to wait till 81 to get that money back. But what about the value of money from 62 to 70 and then to 81? That money, if you didn't spend it, you could have invested it during that time.
And what would your return be?
Well, any return is better than zero, and they factor in zero.
Well, think about this.
If you're going to spend, it's another story.
Right, but if you're conservative, right, the zero factor was pretty on. From like 2010 to 2022, we had no interest rates, right? You were getting 0.5% on a CD.
It was crazy.
So for Social Security to factor in the zero rate, well, on a conservative level, a 10-year government bond was paying 1.5%.
Unusual, I'd say unusual time, but it lasted for a decade, so it can't be that unusual.
Right, I could get very technical about that decade and explain what happened with inflation and why you have risk in bonds too. I'll tell you briefly. So after the 2008 debacle, the country started doing something called quantitative easing.
Yes.
They were putting cash into the system. Yep. Now, the real definition of inflation is too much cash chasing too few goods. So this inflation bomb that went off, in my mind, the fuse was lit a long time ago. And it was a very slow fuse. And when COVID came, the country had no choice but to put even more cash into the system. And that's what really set off the inflation bomb. But during those years in between, everything was cheap, right? We had cheap money, right? Rates were low. We had cheap energy. We had cheap labor. We had cheap taxes. So of course the economy should be doing good. You know, you didn't even need any policy. When things are that cheap, things just continue to move on. So what happened in 2022 to slow down the inflation, the Fed raised rates quickly and violently.
Yes.
2022
violently is a good word.
Was the worst bond market ever. Not the worst bond market in 10 or 100 years ever. Yeah. So people saw the value of their fixed income vehicles drop because when rates go up, the principal goes down.
Correct.
So again, there's another misconception. Hopes if anyone's listening, they take away. There is risk everywhere. There is risk in equities. There is risk in fixed income. There is risk staying in cash. There's inflation risk, market risk, timing risk. I could go on. So 2022 was a little bit of a wake-up call.
Funny, I had advised people when rates had been low for a number of years, said, let's get out of bonds. Buy a bunch of clients in bond funds. Let's get out of these funds because rates, they have to go up. It's been 7 years. It's too long, and so on and so forth. And this one client who was about 90 said, I'm not going. He said, if I want you, I only call people 80 and over. I didn't call my younger clients. I didn't have that many, but because once you're 80 and over, you have less chance to recover from a turn in the market. It could last, typically, they said 7 years, but everything's out the window today. But she refused to move, and she was way more right than I was, because who knew the zero interest rate would stay for what seemed like forever. She
had a more expensive crystal ball.
She changed her battery, and she ended up passing away during that 0% interest period, and she was in a very aggressive bond fund that did awesomely well during that period. I would have pulled her out. I tried to pull her out. That's we try to be smart. We're not always so smart,
How much time do we have left?
As much time as you want.
Okay. All right. No, I guess I just want to make sure I don't see a clock going. So I actually want to circle back because we're getting into the nuts and bolts of portfolio building and strategies. I want to circle back to something you said before about being in a room and you're a 10 and your spouse is a 1. Yes. What do we do about that? So these days, the last several years, I hate to use this word product, but it is a product. Yep. There are investment vehicles in the forms of exchange-traded funds, otherwise known as ETFs, and some annuities, which I'll get into a second, that protect on the downside while giving you market exposure. And they've done phenomenal. What does that mean, protect on the downside while getting market exposure. So these funds don't actually own any equities or any holdings. It's all option based and strategy that has worked. And you give up some potential and upside for the downside protection. Usually you're going to get 10 to 15% protection on the downside. So if the S&P is down 15%, you're going to be flat.
Right.
But if the S&P is up 20%, you might be up 12, 13%. And it proved its worthiness, and it's proved its performance from 2022 to 23. Mm-hmm. They really protected, and they came back when they were supposed to. So when you go back to that, he wants this, I want that.
Right.
There are ways to create market exposure with downside protection.
That's very interesting. I was a big proponent, anti-Susie Orman, a big proponent of variable annuities for the right client.
I always say that too. When it's appropriate, it's very appropriate and very powerful.
And when it's not appropriate, it's really
not appropriate
bad.
At all.
They're very expensive. Same thing. Yeah. And she just, that broad brush you mentioned before, she paints variable annuities, that same broad brush. They're no good. They're wonderful. They have death benefits for people who don't plan on spending the money and they're leaving it to the kids. Death benefits probably used to be better 20, 30 years ago than they are now. But there were all these enhancements.
Well, the biggest thing with variable annuities now, they give you something called guaranteed income for life.
Yes.
And it's exactly what it is. Yeah. So if the contract goes to zero, you're still going to get a certain rate for the rest of your life. Right. Now, these became very attractive when we had no interest rates, what I was talking about before. Yeah. Someone could get 4 or 5% a year for the rest of their life. It's it's amazing. Some example, someone puts $100,000 into an annuity and they want to get $5,000 a year once they could turn on that income switch. Right. So it takes them, let's say 20 years to take it out because they're taking the principal first.
Right.
As long as they're alive, that $5,000 keeps going.
Yep.
So in a way, it's like buying a pension.
Yes.
And these days, there are some annuities that give you guaranteed income for life with no fees.
Yeah.
I won't mention the names. I can't do that, but literally no fees involved. Yeah. They've come a long way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I think they're great, but don't buy them. Don't buy the wrong one, and don't buy them if you don't need them.
It's a long-term investment, and it has to be appropriate. Yeah. If it's not, like you said, I've always said, if it's not appropriate, if you don't check off every box, then it shouldn't be used.
I agree.
So I have a question for you.
Yeah, go ahead.
What are your feelings towards long-term care?
You say long-term care, you mean long-term care insurance.
Insurance, correct.
I own it. I bought it when I was 45. My wife was 43. My premium has since doubled, which, again, that's 22 years. 27 years, 22 years. And I think it's a really important product to have. I think it's just become unaffordable. And since I left the business, but when I was leaving the business, they were just coming out with I call them the Swiss Army knife policies, where you have life insurance with a long-term care rider. And I say, I wasn't a fan. They weren't back, 8 years ago. They weren't very good as far as I'm concerned at either one. But they covered both bases. I don't know if they're better today since I'm out of the business. I haven't looked at them. But long-term care as a standalone policy, you'll tell me, I don't think it's being sold very much anymore. It's gotten so prohibitively expensive.
I'm not a fan of it because I've seen them not work at times.
Because of the premium increase?
I've also seen them become with certain companies, again, I can't match, and had an actual situation with a client where they probably still owed $40,000 to $50,000 because they refused to pay over time. It was not an indemnity program. They had to show time receipts from the aides that were there, and it was a complete mess. So I'm not a big proponent of it. And I'm going to circle back to the life insurance.
That's what my mother had. My parents had it. I sold it to them. And my mother claimed for 3 years, and she made enough money back to pay for her policy and my father's policy and then some. And it was sort of one of the main carriers. And it was very good to us. We're now making a claim on my mother-in-law. And it's been, 6 weeks or 5, and we still haven't gotten a penny back yet. We've submitted, they're still underwriting. She just came out of 3 months in the hospital in rehab. Clearly needs care. There's no question, but they're stalling. Now, it turns out cash flow is not a problem. But for those people, cash flow is a problem. This would be a big deal.
Well, that's why if you do your Medicaid planning, you don't need long-term care insurance. And you don't have to, listen, Medicaid doesn't mean they're going to throw you in a big white building and stick you in a corner somewhere.
Correct.
There are some great facilities that accept Medicaid. And plus, Medicaid is for home care as well.
Right.
You go back to the life insurance, I think if a little tip for today, if people want to take this away, a lot of the older policies, whole life policies, universal life policies, people may want to have them reviewed by a professional and shop around. Sometimes another company will take it over in an exchange and offer maybe same premium, maybe a slightly better death benefit. Right. But the long-term care that you said before, rider, is actually called an access to benefit rider. Right. And it works the same way. I think if you can't do 2 out of the 6 daily activities, then you can start a claim. So that's, a lot of people don't realize that. They have these life insurance policies tucked away in a drawer, and they'll pay the premium once a year or something and forget about it, when it can be quite powerful for them, especially if people are doing well, if they retire wealthy and they honestly don't need it, the life insurance for any reason, they may want to start collecting that access to benefits rider if they do break an ankle, God forbid. So go back to the long-term care for a second. I'm not sure if you're familiar with what a lump sum policy is. See, I think those work out very well. And one company left that business. There's still one company involved. And for those who don't know about it, to circle back for a second, when the traditional long-term care is kind of like term insurance. If you don't, or like car insurance, on like, you know, if you don't use it, you're going to lose it. Right. But the lump sum product, which you could put one payment or pay over 10 years, one of 3 things is going to happen. You're going to use the benefit. You could take your money back after a certain amount of time with a small penalty, which is not insignificant, but it's tolerable. Or there's going to be a death benefit involved. Right. And when if you're 60 years old, let's say, and you buy this, when you first buy it, the death benefit's going to be high. And as you age, the death benefit's going to go down. Right. So you're probably not going to lose anything on this. Right. And I'm not sure the exact statistics, but I think every long-term care policy out there, no matter whether it's traditional or lump sum, I think people only claim 49% of the time. So
the house always wins. The house
always
wins.
Yes, that's a great way of putting it. Yes.
But people go to Vegas, and there are winners in Vegas.
Yes.
But for everyone who wins $1,000, someone's lost $1,100.
You know what? I've been saying this since I came into the business. When the bus that comes back from Atlantic City, only the winners are talking.
Only the winners are talking. That's very good. But the key is you and I know the term the law of large numbers. So I don't want to get too technical, but I can't. Well, I mean, I can, but as an individual, I may not be able to take the risk of covering myself for long-term care or not. So I'm going to buy the policy. And what I tell people to do is you insure things you can't afford not to insure. I don't buy an extended warranty on my refrigerator because if my refrigerator breaks after 3 years, I'll go buy a new refrigerator. I'll write a check. I'll charge my credit card and I'll pay at the end of the month or whatever. But if I need $750,000 worth of care, that's something that people just can't afford. So they want to protect it in some way, shape, or form. And as you said, there are alternate ways than the old-fashioned traditional which wasn't that old-fashioned, traditional long-term care
or just do your Medicaid planning properly.
Or do your Medicaid planning properly.
Yeah. And it's funny, you use the word warranty. That's what I was talking before about the exchange-traded funds that protect on the downside. Yeah. That's sometimes how I present it to people to explain it. If you ever bought a stove or an appliance, a car, you probably bought the warranty around it, right? So this is like putting a warranty around your investments.
Oh, that's very well said.
Yeah.
That's very well said.
I use it a lot, and it's done very well. Yeah,
it's people. We talk about relatable stories. It's people understand that. People know
and they want to sleep at night.
Yes,
you know, most people don't want to be up and down 20% every 3 weeks.
Absolutely. Yeah. But now this is a senior-based podcast, and so, question: the big discussion you have with seniors and financial advisors is drawing down strategies. So there's 2 phases. One's the accumulation phase. The other one's the drawdown phase. So once you retire, theoretically, you're in the drawdown phase. So I've heard people talk about drawing down in buckets. My clients are all retired educators. They had pensions. They spent none of their money. They never drew down. The kids may have drawn down after mom and dad died, but mom and dad literally, I never gave money to my clients except to fix their teeth. That was to fix their teeth and to help their children. Those are the only 2 reasons people ever took money out from me. But but in your case, do you have a sort of a generic kind of advice? I mean, just so people understand.
You know something? A little bit, I do. Yeah. The first one's a tough one because the industry as a whole has always thought, well, you got to base it on 4% of your assets safely. And that's, like 10-year government bond right now is 4.5%. So if somebody had $100,000, they get $4,000 a year and maintain principal. Right. I think you could do a little bit better than that. Too. Obviously, the more aggressive you get, even in the fixed income arena, the better yield you're going to get, better return, but you're your aggressiveness needs to be going up as well, and you're going to see a little bit more up and down. But as far as the other advice, I think that unless you're in a situation, a person or a family is a situation where they have appreciative wealth. They have enough wealth that they're not really going to think about it. Right. Believe it or not, a simple budget helps.
Right.
So, and you know what? I've dealt with people who have, well over six figures, and the same thing. Well, I need $20,000 a month. I need $25,000 a month. And I'm saying, why? Right. You weren't making that when you, where you spend, you're never going to spend this money. Right. And so when you do a budget, you have to go beyond the utilities and the insurance. Right. Go into pet care. How many times is the landscaper coming? Right. Oh, you went for a haircut. I don't have to worry about that. But, you're doing your hairs, you're doing your nails, everything. Right. Yep. And that conversation, believe it or not, works out for a lot of the younger people I deal with too. So for an example, part of my business is that I'm an advisor to retirement plans, 401ks, 403bs. Okay. I actually have a few clients that are in the nonprofit sector here on Long Island. But many times I'll get phone calls from participants who are between 25 and 35 years old. Right. Be a first or second job out of college. And the first question I get is, how much do you think I should put away? Right. And my response is, I don't know. I don't know anything about you. I don't know how you live. Right. So I say, but the real answer is as much as you possibly can.
That's what I was going to say, as much as you can.
So I tell, my daughters and their fiance and boyfriend, you put away as much as you possibly can based on your budget. Right. So if you're living in Brooklyn and you have a roommate and, or if you own your own house, whatever it is, if you're making a budget and you're putting away 10% into retirement plan, things are smooth, go to 11. A few months, things are smooth, go to 12. Right. We don't know what's going to happen with Social Security. There's no pensions out there anymore. But the point is, you have to pay yourself first. Yes. And I mean, I'm going backwards away from the senior community right now, but believe it or not, with seniors too, how are you going to pay yourself first? And a big question I have too is directed towards these people who are going into transition to what you call a drawdown stage. I call it distribution stage. Is what does money really do for them? Right. What kind of joy is it going to bring? So I had a conversation once with a client, moved to Florida and very, very comfortable financially. And she said to me, do I have enough money to change a window? And I said, change all the windows in the house. You have enough money, just do it.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah. Yes. So absolutely. What truly brings you joy?
So what truly brings you joy? I was just listening to people talk about the risk of retiring too late. And I never heard that term before. And they said it's not a financial issue, it's a health issue. That you dream of retiring and you're going to go to all the national parks and so on, but you work another year, I'll work another year, suddenly work 7 more years, and now instead of 63, you're 70, and suddenly your hip's bad, and you can't hike the parks anymore. They said there's a risk to retiring late. They said very few people ever complain they retired too early. But people lament the fact they retired too late.
It makes a lot of sense, especially for people who did physical labor. Construction work and something like that.
On their body.
Yeah, absolutely. It's sometimes it's not the age of the vehicle, it's the mileage.
That's right. Very well said. Very well said.
So you look, I know people who are in construction, they retire at 60, 65 years old, and that's it. There's shoulder surgery, knee surgery, they're up and down ladders their whole life, and it takes a toll.
Yep, absolutely.
That's a great. I never thought about that. People retire too late.
The risk of retiring too late, and I never heard that term. And I thought it was a fantastic thought for a guy who doesn't want to retire. I just want to work 30. My idea of retiring is working 30 hours a week. That to me is retiring, not this 60, 80, 90 hours a week. I work because I love what I do and I can't stop it. But there's other things, as you said, some balance. My balance, I would like to be like this, not like this. So I want to just get a little closer to even. So, but we'll see. I'm working on it. I said this year's the year I start working like a normal person. My idea of working part-time was almost full-time. So, but that's me. It depends, what you like and what you don't like. Vacations, people go on vacation to get away from work. I am on vacation. I want to get back to work. So it depends what you really like and don't like. I think I have one other question. You talk to clients about how much they need in retirement relative to sort of what you alluded to before, what they need while they're working. You mentioned that $20,000 in retirement. The rule of thumb is, and I hate rules of thumbs. Rules of thumb? Was it rule of thumbs? I knew I had my S in the wrong place. Rules of thumb. That's it. The rules of thumb, singular thumb. So we'll start that over. So the rules of thumb is that you need 70 to 80% of your working income in retirement. And I've never subscribed to that. If I retired, I'd want to enjoy myself. So they say, but you're not paying commuting expense, you're not buying work clothes, which I don't think people buy work clothes too much anymore. But I now want to travel. Travel's much more expensive than buying work clothes, and so on.
There's something that's not mentioned in this whole equation. And first of all, I'm not really into, like I was saying before, there's so much information out there, and what am I supposed to be doing? How much am I supposed to be saving? What does the website say about that? A lot of we need to humanize this more. Yeah. All right, it's got to become humanized. And the fact is that as people age, they don't speed up, they slow down. Mm-hmm. And when they slow down, they spend less. Mm-hmm. I have clients that are in their hundreds. Mm-hmm. I have clients that are in their 90s. Right. And, I think that at your age, with the speed that you're going, although it might be rare, it's probably more common than we realize. Right. I'm like, look, I play sports. I'm playing pickleball and softball, and I see a lot of guys playing, and women too, in the pickleball side, because softball's not many women playing, but late 60s, early 70s, even mid 70s, and they're moving. They keep moving, and you're right. It is different these days. It's very different than it was 20, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, because of medical technology, preventive medicine. I can go on about that. But overall, the spending will cut down at some point. So things go slower. I remember around 2010 or 11, I was with a firm, and they spent a lot of money on retirement income software, where you would bring the clients into a special media room, and you're checking off boxes, and the computer's spitting out this, and there's red flags all over the place. Mm-hmm. And I'm looking at this, and I'm saying to myself, who would let a robot run their life like this? There's no what if scenario. Right. Like in investing, there's a Monte Carlo situation. What ifs, but there's no what ifs about life. Right. No one knows what the next day is going to bring. So we do the best we can to protect for the unexpected. But the whole thing, like, how much am I going to need in drawdown of life? You think you know what you're going to need. I can guarantee there's going to be a change. Right. I can guarantee it. Right. Because the only constant in life is change. That's right. It doesn't have to be a bad one. It could be a good one. But something's going to change. Absolutely. You mentioned Monte Carlo. I ended up retaining an advisor when I left the business. I was terrible with my own money. The shoemaker syndrome. Typical. Yeah. Oh, it was unbelievable. Well, every one of my clients did better than me. And I take all my clients out of a certain investment, and I would never take myself out. That investment's not doing so well. Let's move everyone out, and I'd be there for 10 years more. And so I said, let me get someone I don't want to look at my own money. I looked at money all my life. Let's let someone else do it, which that's another story. But he showed a Monte Carlo simulator, and my wife was an ex-Grummanite. She was a logistics analyst for Grumman, and she did Monte Carlo simulations for parts of airplanes. Wow. And she was so excited, Monte Carlo simulation, and I tell her we're doing very well and this and that, our retirement's no problem, and she's more of a pessimist. So Monte Carlo simulation says we have 100%, maybe I think 99%, I don't think it does 100 ever. I think it was 99% chance of success. And she goes, I don't believe it. She was so excited about and then he says, okay, let's stress test. And he does this. And let's assume you buy second home in Florida for $50,000 a year. And plus you're spending hundreds of thousands on it. Okay. 100% chance of success. Let's assume you give $50,000 more a year to charity. 100% chance of success. No matter what he did to it, finally he got down to like 97%. He put like all these obstacles in the way. And it was like, I told you so. But she was so excited till he gave her information that she couldn't process in her own head. Some people feel, they become successful, but I'm like nobody special. Successful people are special people. I'm not special. I'm a regular person. And I think I have a lot of clients like that who are educators who end up with making $60,000 a year, but when they retired or when they were 75 years old, they had a few $1 million. I'm talking about 15 years ago, and they made no money. It's not what you make, it's what you save. And I always say that to people too, which is what you're talking about. The more you make, the easier it is to save. Don't get me wrong. But it's two people making $60,000 a year and someone spending 65 and someone spending 45, there's going to be a big difference at the end of the day. And so one other comment, someone I know in our business was, this goes back at least a dozen years ago. His personal overhead, not his business overhead, his personal overhead was $60,000 a month. $60,000 a month. A gigantic producer, but it wasn't producing $60,000 a month. He was in debt, earning
$55,000 a month. I mean, that's crazy. So, you got to be careful in how you use your money and how you look and how you value money and whatnot. There's a little bug flying around here. There you go.
Okay.
Good thing most people listen don't watch. So anyway, this is not some schlock studio. We don't have too much bug infestation here. Anyway, last time we had a fly flying around. So with that in mind, question is, you had a few points you wanted to make, or
no? I think the discussion went quite well. Thank you. I think we covered a lot of things. I would just say that if we're wrapping this up, I would like to think that if anyone could take anything from what we talked about today, is not so much the technical parts of planning, but the mental, emotional parts of it.
Right.
I'd like to call it mindful planning, and the definition of mindful is really aware of your surroundings. Right. But it's even deeper than that. Right. So, like, if I'm going to get someone, here's the difference between kind and generous. Right? I know it's your birthday, Jack. I'm going to get you a birthday present. But is it going to be a mindful present? Right. So
give me a gift card versus
right. So I think what I want people to take away from our conversation is the process. Right. So it doesn't mean you're picking one mutual fund over another. You're picking long-term care or Medicaid planning and what kind of legal work. It's the emotional part of it, trying to understand that we have to have the humility that we cannot predict the future. We don't know when someone's going to break a hip, but we have to do everything in our power, exhaust all efforts to protect against it.
Right.
And prepare for it. For the what ifs. Right. And this way, just help us sleep at night. And I gave the Rosalind Carter quote before. Right. I'll just say it again. 4 types of people in this world. Those who were caregivers, will be caregivers, are caregivers, and those who will need care. Yeah. Many times we forget about self-care.
Right.
So there are plenty of people in this world that are taking care of a parent, and they have kids in school, and they got to get home to the bus, and the dog just broke its leg, and they go on about it. And we're taking care of a spouse or whatever. I mean, this is like in my mind, a very silent part of the population. Caregivers don't get noticed, and even if it's not true caregiving, even if you're just a parent or a child that's visiting parents, right? We still have to practice self-care and financial self-care.
I just want to piggyback on that, then we'll sort of conclude, and that is, you asked about long-term care insurance. And what I would tell my clients is, you're not buying it for you, you're buying it for your spouse or your kids.
Oh, right, of course.
And people don't realize. They say, well, I don't think I want to buy it. It's not up to you. You're doing it for the rest of your family. Buy it. And that's what I tell them. Don't say, I don't really need it. They need you to have it. And it's huge. And I know right now my wife is dealing with parents, our daughter, and our daughter, we have mentioned it many times, I have a disabled granddaughter. And it changed everyone's life. And she's a sandwich generation with an extra slice of cheese. And
what's the average cost of a nursing home on Long Island right now? $18,000 a month.
A month.
Right?
A month.
So you're going to see dynamic shifts in the economy over the next several years, I think. Some good, some bad.
Right.
Because of the cost of healthcare. Some parts are going to be highly improved because of preventative medicine and technology. Right. Plus, we're living longer. We're going to need more care. Very interesting statistic you may not know about, but over the next 23 years, take a guess how much wealth is going to be inherited, meaning retirement plans, houses, everything.
It's got to be trillions.
Over $100 trillion.
I wouldn't have known 100. I knew it had to be trillions.
Over $100 trillion in the next 23 years.
Nobody can comprehend.
You can't.
$100 trillion. You can't. I don't know how many zeros that even has.
Yeah. So I say to myself, again, in the job of having to predict the future and trying to figure out which way the economy is going and the markets are going, I could come up with tons of negatives. Where is this country going to expand over the next several years? More factory jobs, and where's expansion going to come from? People are struggling to make ends meet. Half of Americans don't have savings accounts. I could go on and on. So, and if it's going to cost more to live on the necessity side, where are they going to find money to buy the shiny new toy, which really drives this country? 70% of GDP is consumers. So I could say, well, we might have enough wealth in this country just to keep going along because of everything that's going to be inherited, even though we're not expanding. And that's I'm just talking to myself right now.
That's a staggering concept.
Yeah, think about that. Just based on money movement from another generation and liquidity.
And what's interesting is each generation has a different attitude about spending money. which is, I find the younger you are, the more willing to spend money. The older generation, less willing, and each generation is more willing. So that $1 trillion over 20 years, that's going to start getting dissipated because the people inheriting it are going to be spending.
How old are your children?
In the 30s.
Okay, my daughters are 30 and 28. The boyfriends are 31 and 30.
Okay.
And fiance now.
Yeah.
So I find the generation interesting too. And if they'll see this, they'll probably scold me about it. But they are not willing to pay for anything that they don't think they should pay for. A cable subscription, streaming, they don't pay for it. Again, like I said before, use the comparison. If you have to change a faucet, let's watch a do-it-yourself video, and I'm not paying someone to. But they're very quick to order food.
That's right.
It's like I would never thought when I was a kid. I'm not paying someone to bring me food. There's no way. Especially growing up in Queens, where you just walked outside or got on a bus if you had to.
That's right.
But it's amazing. Not so much how they spend the money, but what they spend it on.
Correct.
Fascinating.
Without a doubt. Without a doubt. We'll see what happens. Let's hope we'll stick around for a few more decades and see how that goes, how that works for them. But I thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me. This is wonderful.
So question. So how do people get in contact with you?
Phone number 516-719-6396. 516-719-6396. And of course, if you remember my name, you just Google me. I'll come right up and you'll see my website.
Why don't you spell it for everybody so I don't spell it incorrectly?
Peter Janowsky. Janowsky.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. Everyone got that?
Yeah.
Okay. And so that's one. Oops, that's one. If you have an email address you want to give out, or you're better off with the phone.
Just go to my website.
Go to your website.
Yeah,
okay.
It's Ryan. It's rjfsg.com. So it's Ryan Janowsky, Financial Strategies Group.com.
Okay.
rjfsg.com. All my contact information is there. I actually change the homepage once a month. Hopefully, something interesting to read about.
Very good. Okay.
This was a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Unlocking Senior Resources podcast by Leave the Key. If you've enjoyed this episode or found it helpful, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share this podcast. We specialize in working with seniors who are transitioning out of their homes, and we understand what you are going through. So if you are considering selling your home and would like an alternative to the traditional overwhelming process, reach out to see how we can help. When working with us, you can sell your home in its current condition, there is no need to remove unwanted items, and you control when the house is sold, along with so many other advantages. Visit leavethekey.com or call us at 631-388-7771 to learn more about our senior home buying process.